Welcome back, my friends. I'm so glad that there are enough people that care about this stuff that I can make a podcast out of it. It's a great delight for me. My name is Aaron Francis. I am your host, and today I'm talking with Lev Kokotov about Sharding Postgres. We're talking about PgDog, which is not a Postgres extension. Everything's an extension, not PgDog. You'll have to listen to find out why he went that route. This is a great interview. He's very down to earth, very low key. It's a lot of fun. As a slight programming note, I'm curious your take on this. I'm thinking of taking on sponsors for this show to help me get it edited and produced a lot faster. Right now, I just do it all myself. But here's the caveat. I don't want to take on database sponsors. Here's my thinking. I want to keep the content pure, and I don't want people to be hesitant to come on because their competitors are sponsoring. And, I don't want to introduce this pay to play thing where somebody sponsors and then they get to come on. I just don't want to do any of that. So let me know what you think. Who should I take on as a sponsor for this podcast, provided they're not a database company? Okay. Enough metaprogramming. Let's get to the show. Hey, y'all. Welcome back. Today, we've got Lev Kokotov from PgDog. Not only PgDog, PgCat, too. So we're going to talk about the whole thing. But first, Lev, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Aaron. I'm Lev. I've been working on databases for a long time. Been an engineer all my life. Self-taught originally, then went to school, then got a couple of gigs at a few startups, then worked for Instacart. Started my previous company before this, so it's my second startup. I've been coding in Rust with Postgres for quite some time. We could talk about that, but that's the short summary about me, I think.
Perfect. Okay, so before we get started on Postgres, tell me the self-taught and then went to school story, because I am self-taught in the computer science field. I got my degree in accounting, but I never went back and got like a CS degree or even anything related. So what's your self-taught and then school story?
Yeah, for sure. When I was a kid, well, kid, I guess I was like 16. I just was interested in computers. I was playing a lot of World of Warcraft. It's okay, judge away. It was a different time.
Classic.
I know.
No, it's okay. I was a Red Alert 2 guy for many, many years, so spiritually similar.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I love Red Alert 2 for sure. 3 as well. Yeah, so I just like start. I was on the computer already, so I just kind of started programming just a little bit for fun, just to learn what it's all about. I started with C++, which was a big mistake because I
Mm.
couldn't write anything. It was so hard. And I just kind of assumed that I wasn't just good at this. It wasn't good at this, so I just wouldn't bother. So I decided to study social science. I went into pre-law, did a little bit of political science for like about 3, 4 years. But at the same time, I was also kind of like programming on the side, and I even got like a freelance job as a like a PHP programmer for a hot second. And
My people.
I mean, we all start with PHP.
Yeah. Some of us stick with it, but yes, we all start there. So we're all the same in that regard.
Yes, we are. It took me like 5 years to realize like, like I'm most of the time I'm just like coding. I'm enjoying this for should probably like do this for real. And then
Mhm.
I was like, well, computer science degree sounds really good. I'll just try it. And it was honestly the hardest thing I've ever studied. It took me like 3 years to finish, and it was actually really tough. But yeah, it was worth it, honestly. Like I learned a lot of like the theory. I just learned to like, like bang my head against the problem like for a semester, frankly.
Mhm.
And then kind of yeah, you kind of learn about this about yourself that you can actually solve all these problems that you thought were super hard, and I think that's the best lesson I got out of it. Yeah.
So that was going to be my question: is was it worth it? And it sounds like it definitely was. And from your perspective, obviously you learned fundamentals, but you think learning the stick to itiveness is the most valuable thing you learned there.
Yeah, they I think that's the case. Yeah, they kind of put you on the timeline and they give you this like playbook and they tell you what to learn and they kind of teaches you a little bit of discipline around programming because it's sometimes hard to kind of like stick with something, be like,
Hmm.
especially if you're like just doing it for fun on the side. Like you just like it took me like maybe like 6 or 8 years to learn Rust as the language just because I just was doing it on the side. I didn't really care. I just kind of gave up multiple times. But in school, I had 3 months. If I didn't learn something, I would fail the class, and
Hmm.
that would suck. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh man, so interesting. Okay, that's not what we're here to talk about, but that is
Okay.
terribly interesting. So, what we're here to talk about is Postgres. So, I did an episode recently with Sugu, who is building multigrass, and many people were like, "Hey, we should talk about PgDog," and I was like, "Let's talk about PgDog." So PgDog exists. PgCat also exists. So let's start with PgCat. Tell me what that is and a little bit of the history before we move into your current one, which is PgDog.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote PgCat between jobs. I was like a database engineer at Instacart for years, and we ran into all kinds of scaling problems with Postgres, including sharding. And we did a lot of that stuff manually, just ad hoc, with Bash scripts, honestly, and just like hacking PG Bouncer a little bit. Um, and that was great. And then I was kind of like done, and took a break. And what I like to do between jobs is kind of like work on all these passion projects that I wish I had the chance to work at in the real job, but they don't
Yeah.
typically let you do that. So I had a month off between jobs, and I put my thoughts on paper, wrote PGCat in Rust, because again I was still learning Rust at the time. And I reached out to a couple of my friends at Instacart, and I was like, "Hey, I wrote this thing that we always talked about, sharding for Postgres. Isn't that cool?" And their first response was like, "Didn't you just quit? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?"
Aren't you supposed to be like on sabbatical for a month until you start your new job? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, "Okay, fine, whatever." So they kind of picked it up, took a look at it, like fixed it mostly because, I didn't have access to like massive production scale anymore, so
Sure.
they did. So they ran it against all their production DBs and eventually like migrated to PGCat from PG Bouncer, which was really fun to see. So that's really
Oh wow.
Mhm.
They migrated from PG Bouncer to PG Cat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So give me the high level, give me the elevator pitch for what is PG Cat.
Well, PGCat is I would say a really advanced connection pooler and proxy.
Okay.
It can do connection pooling, sure, but it can also do load balancing. So if you have multiple replicas, you can just point your app at PGCat and it'll just take care of everything. Load balancing queries between multiple replicas, spreading the load evenly, and then even splitting writes and reads. So if you have a primary and multiple replicas, which you obviously would,
Hmm.
you don't have to rewrite your code in your app to like point the write queries to the primary and read queries to the replica. PGCat will take care of that as well.
Cool.
And I think the one really cool feature about it is failover. So if one of your replicas goes offline because of a hardware failure, PGCat will automatically remove it from the load balancing pool and move
Mm-hmm.
traffic to whatever is left. So you get your 4 nines of uptime for your Postgres replicas, which was a huge issue for us at Instacart at least. We would lose a replica almost every week or so because we had like hundreds of them.
So you're working in this high scale environment, and then you are going to switch jobs, and so you have some time off work, so you decide to work, which is classic. What is it about PG Bouncer that you looked at it and you were like, no, I'm gonna just fundamentally write a brand new thing. And what did you do? What did you do differently to make that worth the effort?
Yeah, great question. We actually forked PG Bouncer at Instacart to add a little feature to it. It took me like 2 months to just add something really trivial because it's written in C. I'm not a C expert. It took me a little bit to learn the language. You could say it's a simple language, but underneath you really have to manage a lot of complexity yourself, like memory
Hmm.
management, pointers. I faulted that thing so many times before I got anything to work. Probably it's just on me, but frankly, I just kind of looked at it. I'm like, well, I don't think I can add features trivially to this. It would take me months, years, to change it in a way that's reliable and safe. And the connection pooling itself is like it's not that much. That's not that hard of a problem to solve. Frankly, you can write a connection pooler yourself. Like give yourself a month maybe, and you'll probably be able to do it. And I was like, well, I'll just write it in a language that I know really well and I can build on later. Like the
Hmm.
more interesting features are not really connection pooling, it's everything else that I would like to add to it. So I just rewrote the connection pooler. It took me like, a couple weeks. And then I just started adding more stuff to it. So that's probably the reason why.
So I have to imagine that some of this was a scratch your own itch exercise. So it wasn't a purely rational exercise, but some part of it is like, hey, I want this thing to exist in a way that is easy for me to extend, modify, control, tweak, change. And unfortunately, PG Bouncers is not that thing. And so the combination of those two reasons led you to just take this time to write your own little project, which sounds like has become a very big project. So what is the status of PgCat today?
Well, so unfortunately, like we don't maintain it anymore. I moved everything to PgDog. And the reason for that was the architecture for PgCat was kind of like it was like a V0 or a V1 of what I really, really wanted to build. I
Hmm.
wanted to add support for cross shard queries, automatic shard detection, just like making a true like horizontally scalable almost database engine that's powered by
Hmm.
Postgres behind the scenes. And PgCat was like you would have to rewrite the majority of it. So I decided to start a new project. Plus, PgCat was kind of ish sponsored ish by my last company, which unfortunately shut down as well. So I just
Mm.
decided to start something new. People still use it in production. People still ask me questions about it. I, happily tell them like what's going on. It's reasonably stable. It's used in prod, so
Hmm.
people can just pick it up and use it. That's completely fine. But I don't think any of the original folks are still working on it anymore.
Is there a lead maintainer or a community around it, or has all that energy moved over to PG Dog now?
Um, Partly yes, partly no. So there's two guys who helped me build it. One at What Signal the company, and one at Instacart. Mustafa, you probably heard of him. He did a bunch of talks on how they do Rails over there. It's incredible. Um, they just kind of solved the problem that they were looking to solve with it.
Cool.
And it's stable. It's running in prod. They don't need to make any changes to it anymore, as far as I know. So there's no real reason for them to add more stuff. Uh, so I think that's kind of the state of it at the moment. And
Y'all heard it here first. Completed software. The first time in history they set out to solve a problem and they solved it and they decided we don't need to add a bunch of useless stuff to it.
well,
So,
yeah, I mean, useless perhaps to them in particular. I think there's a lot of things
exactly.
you can add, but yes, you can choose to stop. It's just kind of
Yes,
like
you can,
you
which is
can't.
crazy. So,
No.
for them, they solved the problem, and you looked at it and you said, "I want to do more. This needs to be more powerful, and maybe solve a different problem." Which sounds like the reason that the dog and cat kind of split is, "Hey, this works really well for what it does. In fact, I wanted to do something kind of different." So, talk me through. Because PG Dog is just recently through YC, is that correct?
That's
Just
correct,
like
yeah.
this year. Okay. So
Yep.
PG Dog is a company that you started, has gone through YC, and plays in the same space. So talk to me about deciding, I want to do another one. It's going to be another animal. It's going to be similar, and we're going to take it through YC. Before we get into the technical stuff, talk to me about that journey coming out of cat to dog.
Yeah. That's a great one. So this time I didn't take a month. This time I took about 6 months between gigs. So my last company, shut down, and I was just like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna do nothing for a little while. I lasted exactly 2 weeks before I
Yeah, I
started.
was gonna say. Yeah.
I started coding like a maniac, and some of the projects that I built in between, I will don't want to talk about because they're really dumb. And I kind of did it on purpose, just like to code some random things. Like I coded an app to track my dog's behaviors and stuff. I just wanted to learn
Hmm.
like a front end language or whatever, like a mobile app, whatever. I learned how to use Supabase and all that stuff. And then towards like month 4 or so, I was like, well, listen, I should probably get back to like reality and code something that I actually like and enjoy and I want to do. And I was like, wow, I have this unfinished thing. Like I started this, I didn't finish it. Let's try again. Like third time or fourth time by now is the charm. Let's do it. So I spent again a few weeks writing code, just getting it done. And I wrote a POC and I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, I should probably get a job. Right? Because like I have to pay the bills, it's just great, but let's maybe get a job and move on. So I applied to a few jobs, got a couple offers, but then it was just like I can't. I don't think I don't want to do like the that kind of stuff anymore. So I took a shot in the dark, applied to IC. My chances were 1 in like 20,000. What's better than zero? To my surprise, I got a call from Gary Town who said like, yeah, you can join, and that moment. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. I missed this call, of course, because
Mm,
I was gaming. I was playing a game. My phone was on silent, and then
mhm.
the I have an Android phone. We could talk about that too. But it transcribes your your voicemail, and it says like, "Hey, this is Gary 10 from Y Combinator. Please call me back." And I'm like, "That's not a call I should have missed." Um,
Mhm. Yeah, just tell him you were working hard on the product when he called.
super
So
super. Yeah.
did you apply as a solo founder? Because I know that or at least the lore is they prefer co-founders. So you applied as a solo founder with a technical product, and did you have any sort of product market fit, revenue, anything at that point?
No, no product market fit. Well, I guess you could say like I built something similar before and it's used in
Okay.
production at a couple of big companies. So that's a good signal, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my big, like, that was a huge part of my application. Like, hey, like I built something like this before. It's used in prod. I think this is cool. The market for Postgres is huge. Like I've been working on Postgres for like 8, 9 years. Who knows? Been
Mm-hmm.
forever. So I think that helped a lot. I think they kind of looked at that and kind of overlooked the no co-founder part.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a few other solo founders in my batch, so I I don't know if they prefer like to have for you to have a co-founder, or is just people want to have a co-founder and they apply together. I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of it's kind of a self-reinforcing function probably, but no, I never felt like I was that different. I guess.
Hmm. So what was your pitch to them? Like I get it from the technical side. Like from the technical side, I've done this thing before. I've got these ideas of how it can be, more powerful, more useful, more helpful. What is your pitch going into Y Combinator of why this is going to be, a billion-dollar company?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, a lot of people run Postgres these days. The
Hmm.
stats are kind of getting a little bit crazy, but last year, based on my research, at least like 50% of all new databases that are created in the world, and that includes Dynamo, MongoDB, things that have nothing to do with SQL, like 50% of those databases is Postgres.
It's
Uh,
crazy.
so like this database is growing like crazy. It's going to beat Oracle. It's going to beat MySQL. It's going to beat all these guys. Um, but it doesn't have like a reasonable scaling product. Like there's no sharding solution for Postgres out there. There is for MySQL. There is for Dynamo, obviously. There is for Cassandra, Scylla, Mongo. All that is sharded. Postgres is not. And people have tried this many, many times. Well, I shouldn't say many, many times. They've tried it a couple times.
Hmm.
One of them was very successful, Citus. It took them 8 years to build something amazing. They eventually got sold to Microsoft, which is great. But then it kind of, died.
Hmm.
Not die, but kind of the development stopped, and people don't really use Citus as much as we'd like. So I just saw this like gap. I wanted to build something like this for myself personally because I'm a Postgres user. I want this to exist for Postgres, and I've seen it really, really needed at Instacart, and I believe that there's easily 1,000 companies out there who would need that kind of product as well.
Cool. So you relied on previous experience and obviously growing market, and there's at least one in this exact space that exited to Microsoft. So you had some sort of directionally correct bet that this could be a thing. That
Yeah,
makes sense. That makes sense to me. So then let's talk about the technical details of PG Dog. So let's uh let's start with a high level. We'll do another elevator pitch. High level, what is PgDog and what are the areas of scaling that it concerns itself with?
yeah, great question. So if you want to associate one thing with PgDog is going to be sharding Postgres and
Okay.
doing it in a way that is effectively transparent to the application. Uh,
Okay.
my pitch is like you don't have to change Postgres or you don't have to change your app to make it work, which I think is kind of cool. Um,
It's compelling.
will it work? I believe so. I think we're going to run into a ton of edge cases around like complicated cross-check queries, aggregates, window functions, and CTEs, and foreign keys, unique indices. I
Mm-hmm.
I have a list. I have a roadmap that you should look
Yes,
through,
yes, all of those things. Yes.
and most of them are like to do, to do, to do.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are kind of working. Some of them are not yet. But this is what it's going to be. It's going to be really fast, transparent, sharded Postgres. And the data layer is going to be all entirely just like community PG, like no forks, just Postgres, and everything that makes it scalable is manipulated at the network layer. So one hop above
Yeah.
inside PgDog. So we make that completely transparent. That would be it.
Okay, compare at a high level, compare PgDog to Citus. So we know Citus got acquired. They went into the Borg and maybe have slowed down, stopped, pushing. Architecturally or fundamentally, do they concern themselves with the same things, Citus and PgDog? And is there any fundamental architecture difference that you looked at Citus and said, I don't want to do that? Or did you look at Citus and say, I definitely want to do that on any of them?
Yeah. So great question. So I want to say there's two architectural differences, and I remember one very, very clearly. And by the time I finish the sentence, I will probably remember the second one. So let's start with the first one that I really, really
Let's
remember.
do.
Let's do, yeah. Uh, Citus runs inside Postgres. It's an
Okay.
extension.
Hmm.
So to deploy it to prod, you need to use one of your PG instances as the coordinator, and you could only really have one. And that creates a certain limitation of throughput. You have to push everything through PG. It's process based, which is usually fine. But once you start throwing like millions of queries at it, you can't like horizontally scale your actual sharding layer.
Hmm.
Uh, PgDog is an application that runs entirely outside of Postgres. We took the SQL parser from PG, like the actual C code from PG, and copy it into PgDog. So we have
Cool.
100% query compatibility, but we don't have the query engine. So we have to rebuild some of those features. But what this allows us to do is we can have n PgDogs running together
Hmm.
in a pack and and shard your Postgres in parallel. So it's much more scalable, and the latency profile for PgDog is considerably lower. So it's like to run a query through Citus, you'll notice the latency, and if you run through PgDog, the latency would be much smaller, which makes it actually feasible for like OLTP use cases, which I'm targeting. Citus
Hmm.
was more OLAP, like online data warehousing, if you will. So analytical queries, and they spend years and years and years building the analytical engine, which PgDog is quite a bit behind. So they support a lot of really cool, like powerful aggregates, which PgDog does not yet. But when it comes to online use cases, transactional read-write data, PgDog is considerably faster, and that's really important because, like at Instacart, we actually considered using Citus, and we couldn't because it wasn't scalable, which is
Hmm.
a little bit ironic, but that's
Yeah.
just how it is. Um, and the second one, and I think I'm starting to remember it now. It was around application design because Citus kind of requires you to build your app around Citus primitives, while PgDog kind of hooks into your existing schema and tries to make it work, tries to shard an existing schema. That's going to be quite challenging, but that's really the goal because when you come to somebody and who wants to shard Postgres at scale, you can't ask them to rewrite their app.
No.
Like they have millions of lines of code, they have thousands and thousands and thousands of queries. You have to be able to come in and be like, I'm going to shard your app and your database. I don't expect you to move your app and your data to my database. It's a really big ask. Um, so that's the path I'm taking. So those are two
So
differences. Yeah.
yeah. So to the first one, I saw that one of your, I don't know if it was the tagline or the footer or whatever on PG Dog's site was something like scaling Postgres without extensions. And so that is a core belief of yours, is that PgDog will sit in front of Postgres, not be a part of Postgres. And is that fully informed by your time trying to scale Citus and running into those bottlenecks at Instacart, or was there some other critical insight that you said, I don't want this inside of Postgres?
That's right. Well, frankly, both. I built an entire company before this that was based on an extension inside Postgres. Postgres ML
Hmm.
was my last startup, and we tried to put machine learning inside Postgres as an extension. And working inside Postgres was uh, like exceptionally interesting and really really fun. But the way to deploy changes to your database through extensions is exceedingly difficult.
Hmm.
And if you put an extension that will actually do something for you, you won't be able to deploy it to like 99% of databases out there that run on RDS or Azure or GCP that don't have your extension. So you have a massive distribution problem. Meanwhile, if you have an app that you could a network app that you deploy in front of the DB and it does something useful. That's trivial. You can deploy it on EC2, on ECS, on Kubernetes, whatever, and it's completely transparent. So the distribution problem is effectively solved. So that is why I don't want to build an extension. It's just exceptionally difficult to actually give it to people and make them use it. And of course, there's the like we tried it at Instacart. We benchmarked it. We've never used it in production because well, it didn't pass our benchmark suite.
Mm.
It was just not fast enough. So that's really the core of it.
The distribution thing makes a ton of sense to me because anytime you're looking at a provider, you're looking at what extensions do they support, right? And so if you want to get in with one of the big dogs and they don't support your new little extension, you're kind of hosed, right? So
Yeah.
do you have, this is kind of outside of PgDog specifically, but maybe for the just the general audience, do you have um, like a heuristic or a matrix of decisions of when an extension makes really good sense and when an extension like PgDog does not make sense. So one of Postgres's, I think one of their great like reasons to use it is there's an extension for everything. It's like, hey, we'll just put everything inside of Postgres, which can be wonderful, but obviously has some drawbacks. So, do you have a heuristic of this is a good extension case and this is a good standalone app case?
I think I do. I kind of made it up in my mind, and let me know if it makes sense. Like try a use case that they implement inside an extension and then multiply it by 1,000 and see if it continues to work. Like for example, adding a new data type, like pgvector added a new data type inside Postgres.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have 1,000 of these columns somewhere? Absolutely. Can you have 1,000 of these indices in your database? Absolutely. It's completely scalable. Individual indices, is a different story, but it works. It definitely should be an extension. This shouldn't be done outside the DB. Another extension which I personally really like, but I don't think I'll be able to use is pgcron. It runs the cron jobs
Mm-hmm.
inside Postgres.
Mm-hmm.
That like multiplied by 1,000, it's kind of hard to reason about. You have like 1,000 of these cron jobs. They all run SQL. Like it's all somewhere in the background. Like it's really hard to manage. And most cron jobs they have nothing to do with the database. They want to send an email. Like how can you do that from inside
Right.
Postgres?
Yeah.
So that makes less of a sense to me. And then you kind of have to have another cron job anyway, so might as well just use that instead of having one inside PG. So that's my heuristic. Multiply it by 1,000, see if it still makes sense, and then you'll immediately kind of have a gut feeling about it.
Hey, that's a pretty. I don't know if you came up with that on the spot, but that's a pretty good rubric. It's one line. Multiply it by 1,000. Does it still make sense? That's pretty good. Good job.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's talk technically about PgDog.
Mhm.
So we understand now that it is not an extension. It is a standalone thing that sits in front of presumably many instances of Postgres. It concerns itself with sharding and connection pooling at the very least, probably more. And you pulled the query parser from Postgres proper, but not the query engine. And so um, I guess talk to me about the architecture. Is it built in Rust as well? Okay, so this is a Rust application that sits in front, and does it pretend to be Postgres to the outside world?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
We implemented the whole protocol, from scratch. If you look at the spec, the protocol is actually not that complicated. Well, you'll,
Yeah. To
yeah,
you, maybe.
perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. It took me a few weeks, and I still like find myself making mistakes. So actually, fair enough.
That's pretty complicated then, yeah.
It's up there. It's not HTTP. It's definitely a little bit more complex. Well, maybe it's stateful. That's the real issue. You have
Hmm.
to keep track of what each client does and which each server does. And
Interesting.
if you miss a step, you're gonna have like a really confusing error. So
Huh.
Postgres is really good at detecting those errors and telling you did something wrong, but you as the pooler, you have to be able to do the same thing. So we keep track of transactions, we keep track of client server state, we keep track
Mm.
of prepared statements, we keep track of sharding keys, replicas, primaries, where's everything at any given point, memory usage, like the whole thing. So you could almost look at it as like it's not a database. Like let's not get carried away. The storage part is completely managed by Postgres, but
Hmm.
a lot of things will get pretty interesting for sure.
So it is half of a database. It is all of the front half and none of the storage. And then
Yeah.
you so presumably the application connects, and at that point, PgDog has the connection,
Yeah.
and then it is responsible for mapping those queries to the different shards, right? And so it goes off and queries one or n many shards, and then um, does it how far, I suppose, I know you still have a lot of to-dos on the list. How far are you down the path of it queries three shards to get all the data, brings it back to PgDog, puts it together into a result set, and then sends it back to the end user?
That's a great question. I keep estimating that percentage in my mind, and every time I talk to somebody, that percentage gets a little smaller.
We're moving the wrong way, aren't we?
No, we're not. We're learning things, and that's really great. I knew getting into this that this is a multi-year project. This could easily
This
be a
is.
10-year project, 15-year project before it's finished. And that's expected, and that's really personally I like that because it gives me
Mhm.
a job for the next 15 years, and that's like it'll be amazing. Um, to give you a more simple answer, if you have the sharding key in your query, like if you know which shard effectively you're gonna have to go to, it works 100%. Like that's it. Direct to shard queries work today, no problem. Uh, if you don't have the sharding key, we can do the following things. We can collect results from multiple shards and present them as one.
Mhm.
If you have a sorting, if you sort your results, we can also perform the sorting operation because as you can imagine, you're talking to multiple databases. Even if you send the query everywhere and ask the Postgres to sort, like the overall sorting order will be
You still
wrong.
have to collate them. Yeah.
Exactly. You have to collate them and then resort them as well. Because you have different values on different shards. You basically have to do a merge sort in the pooler and then send it over. So that's supported for at least 3 or 4 or 5 data types. I actually need to map every single Postgres data type and parse it inside PgDog and make sure that I have the sorting operation supported for it. And that's actually not as hard as you would think. You just need to like kind of go through like the 50 or so data types and parse them, and then most of them are pretty easy to parse. You
Mhm.
just have to do it. And then aggregates are on the way. You could do min, max, sum, and count, which are I always forget the word transcommutable. Like if you can ask for each shard to get that value, and then you can combine that value in PgDog without recalculating the total result from the raw results,
Mm.
from the raw rows. So you can combine those. But for example, average is not supported right now because for averages
Mhm.
you have to get the total and then the average and then recombine it. So I need to write that query rewrite engine to do that. That's gonna be probably done this summer, hopefully. But I also have more work to do that's a little bit different. Like around resharding and moving data between databases because that's really the really important part. So to give you a fixed percentage, I want to say 30%, maybe
Okay.
is
I'll take
like
30.
so the people I'm talking to right now, like companies that I like to do business with, they kind of understand what I'm doing and they want direct to shard queries. Like they don't want their apps to actually do cross shard queries because
Right.
they're expensive and they're tricky. Uh, so for them, they're going to target like 95% will be direct to shard with a sharding key, and then the 5% is where the real work will start. And that's what I'm working on right now. Um,
So that is the query. That's the query serving part. Talk to me about how the, I guess, backing up a step. We've got we've got a massive Postgres database. We're in trouble. We call Lev. He says, "Great, let's get some PgDog in there." What happens then? Because to the application, it should be and is transparent. You just connect to PgDog and do your thing, and presumably you're doing where team ID equals one or company ID equals one or whatever, and you're going to a single shard behind the scenes. But how do we get from big struggling Postgres instance to PgDog is sitting in front of multiple instances? What's the journey there?
Great question. I'm designing 2 or 3 algorithms, or I should say, like processes to do that. Two of them we've done at Instacart, so they're pretty much battle tested, and I'm gonna put that inside PgDog's open source core. So what will happen is you'll deploy PgDog, it'll see that you only have one shard, and you'll ask it to like, hey, make this into 3 shards. and it's going to create 3 separate databases. It's going to migrate the data, reshard the data online into these 3 or 6 or 12 shards, whatever you choose. And it is going to do that atomically, because we're going to use logical replication, which is, you're probably familiar with it, but it's a way to stream application data from inside like table data from inside Postgres to another instance. And we can hook into that replication stream, like actually parse the data and split it between multiple shards. So I know it's really cool.
That's cool.
The protocol is
We're
documented.
extreme nerds because that sounds very cool to me. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it's an actual stream. It's documented. The protocol is documented. You can see what's the data inside that stream, so you can read it and split it. And the cool part about it, actually, the cooler part, I should say, about it is, I think Postgres 16 or 17 allows you to create logical replication streams from actual replicas, from streaming replicas in Postgres. So I can imagine, coming into this really overloaded SAT database, creating like 16 replicas in RDS, which is basically like a zero cost operation, spinning them up and stream 16 tables in parallel. Which,
Oh, interesting. So you have the big guy. I was going to say big dog, but dog is a technical term in this episode. You've got the big guy, the big overloaded Postgres database. You can go into RDS and say, "Give me 16 replicas," and it'll do that.
yeah,
Quick and easy. Been done 100 million times before. From those 16 replicas, you can get 16 different streams coming out, such that your sharding operation, if you want to call it that, is 16 times faster and not stressing out this already overstressed database.
exactly.
Ah, cool.
Like, let me give you an example. Like, we didn't do that exact thing at Instacart. We snapshotted the primary, restored it separately, synced it up with logical replication, and then streamed from that, using one table at a time, one stream at a time, I should say. And that took us about a week or two to create like a sharded cluster. And it was all manual. And you make one mistake, you have to go all the way to the beginning, like go back to like zero, whatever the monopoly. Skip go.
Yeah,
Do not
do not
collect.
pass go straight to jail. Yeah,
Straight to database jail, exactly. Oh man, how many
seriously.
times I dropped the replication slot and lost all my progress? It was yeah. Anyway, that's why I'm building this company, this product, because I don't want anyone else
Cool.
to ever do this again. So yeah, it took us like 2 weeks to create it was like a 12 terabyte database, and we sharded it into like 6, 2 terabyte databases. With parallel streaming, you could do this in less than a day, probably less than a few hours, frankly. I think this will make it actually operational. It's not going to be like a long, scary process. It's going to be like a quick thing you can get like real-time feedback on.
Very cool. And so you said there were a couple of ways you were thinking about this. Does this way have a name, and what are some of the other ways you're thinking of?
I don't think this way has a name. I should start naming these things because it
You
would be
should start
cool.
naming it. Yeah.
I don't know. We could come up with a name in a minute. But another one is that the one we actually did at Instacart, it's actually documented in a blog post somewhere. We take the primary, we create a backup in RDS. Well, actually, let me back up. We create a replication slot. I know, pun intended. We create a replication slot, create a backup, restore the backup, resynchronize the backup with logical replication by moving the origin inside the replication slot. Very scary stuff. People tell us you're gonna blow up your database. We did not. We people on the mailing list were like, if you do this, you will corrupt your data, you will lose all your data. We were like, well, I believe you. Actually, I don't believe you, and also we don't have a choice. So
Oh,
we're just gonna do it.
terrifying.
It is, but you can test all these things out. Like we did all of this offline with like staging databases. We validated that this actually works, and then we had a rollback plan and everything. Like we're not cowboys. We're not crazy. We're just we like to experiment.
Hmm.
That's how you push the edge. The envelope or whatever the expression is. So that was a way to do it. And then once you have that little standby running, you can actually copy data we use 4 data wrappers and 4 table partitions to like push that data out to the actual shards with literally like a copy statement. It was wild, but it worked. And then at the end, we took the hash partition logic from inside Postgres, like the C code, and we ported it into Ruby because our app was in Ruby, and that was the routing layer. And then for the 1% of queries that could not be sharded, didn't have a sharding key, we used foreign data wrappers and like 6 different coordinators that you could like talk to and get these like uh, aggregates basically to work. And Postgres foreign data wrappers are like okay, but they're not like they don't work at scale. I would say their like latency is too high, but
Hmm.
we don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. So uh,
Okay, I followed about 18% of that. So the first one sounds a lot more straightforward and a lot easier to get your head around. And so
yes.
where in the PgDog handles this, vector or scale. Where are we now for PgDog doing this sharding part?
Like 5%. Not even.
Okay.
I have to build this over the summer. Well, ideally. Again, it's summer. We're already in July, and I've been saying over the summer
I wasn't
since.
gonna tell you, but yeah.
I mean, it's San Francisco. I don't know what season we are. It's always the same. Um, so anyway, I hope to finish it by the end of summer because at least the prototype should be pretty. Well, I don't want to say straightforward again. I keep using the same word to build, but it should be very doable to have an MVP of this by the end of summer, so people can start trying it out and making sure it works. There's a huge orchestration work to be done, like creating databases, synchronizing them, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that should live necessarily inside the core product because we're talking about like making like AWS calls, and then if you're not on RDS, I think
Yeah.
all of these things should probably be managed by some kind of cloud orchestration software, which I would like to build as well. But now I need more hands to help me with that. And
Yeah. Summer's almost over, my friend. So that I guess that was my other question is like if you have to spin up, 16, well, let's knock it down. Say four. You got to spin up four databases. Um, you as PgDog, you don't know what provider they're on. You don't know what cloud they're on. They might just be on, if they're DHH, they might be on a rack in some data center somewhere. So like, where do you draw the line of like this is PgDog's responsibility and this is the user's responsibility?
it's a good point. I don't think it should really ever be the user's responsibility in the ideal world. I don't
Hmm.
think it should be inside PgDog core necessarily. That's why I'm building. I want to build a cloud basically where you can connect it to your GCP, Azure, AWS, whatever. Give me your key, trust me, and I'll do this for you, right? But a lot of that logic will live in an actual like web app, if you will. And then PgDog is config driven. You just update the config and say like, all right, this is your primary. These are your 4 shards that I need populated with data, and then you can just like tell it to do that, and it'll create logical replication streams because that part needs to be synchronized and high performance. So I don't want it to be like inside a weird web app.
Sure.
Uh, so that part should definitely be in the PgDog core, and because underneath it's all just Postgres databases. It doesn't have to be in like PgDog doesn't need to care about where Postgres runs. It's all application layer protocol. Um, I think that separation makes sense.
Yeah, so the clean handoff is um, PgDog ends up with a connection to a bunch of Postgres databases. How those databases came into existence, where they live, how long they've been alive, PgDog does not concern itself with. If it can connect to the big guy and the four replicas, then it can do its job, which is still extremely complicated, configuring stuff, doing a bunch of stuff. But the crucial part is, can I connect to these databases that you claim exist? Is that like the clean separation?
Yeah, definitely. Being config driven is really nice because you don't have to solve a lot of these crazy synchronization problems. Like I don't need to use etcd or console or like all that funky stuff. Uh, I can just like put it in a config and then let it do its job. Um, and it's easy to write. You can write it by hand. You can automate it, of course. You can generate a config using some other software. So I think the separation is really clean and nice. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, are you building a database cloud? Like, are you building a database host? Is my question. Are you building um, the planet scale for Postgres, which is complicated now? But is that what you're building? Because it sounds like you've mentioned the web component, but you've also mentioned um, hooking into the users or the customers GCP or AWS or whatever. So at I guess what is your grand vision? Is it web orchestration or is it bring me your databases and I will take care of them.
I think to get started, it's the bring me your databases and I'll take care of them.
Okay.
It's a really great proposition for most companies because nobody likes to migrate to a different cloud,
Correct.
especially a brand new cloud. Like
Uh-huh.
forget it. Uh, Migrating to a different database, nobody wants to do that. It took us like a quarter to decide, a quarter, like 4 months or 3 months is a quarter, sorry, 3 months to decide that we should try Aurora on one of our databases, even
Mm,
though they provided all the migration tools for us. And it took us months to migrate. And migration is a really, really bad word in the database world.
mhm,
So I want to start by just going to people wherever they are and sharding there. And eventually I can see, once this becomes a repeatable pattern and I've really like built PgDog to be a great, reliable, powerful software, like running it as part of a cloud offering which just makes sense. Um,
mhm.
Now in terms of building planet scale for Postgres, entirely possible. I think running Postgres after all of that we just discussed, running Postgres is sounds pretty easy. Like that
Yeah.
that's a solved problem. I've done this many times before. Eventually it would probably make sense to do that, but right now main focus is get PgDog to actually shard Postgres, at least for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
So uh, a couple of different times throughout this, you've had good thoughts on distribution and adoption, the whole extension thing, the nobody wants to migrate thing. What is the shape of the company at this point? Because you went through YC as a solo founder. Do you have multiple employees? Are you doing like, is it like consulting right now, or you selling anything? Talk to me about like the business side of things, because you seem to be very tuned into it, especially for a technical founder.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I just hired our first employee this week or last week.
Congratulations.
It's crazy. Like I meet people on the internet and they're like, "This is really exciting, and I want to work here." And I'm like, "That's amazing. That's really great." I mean, that's how it works.
That's
But
great.
every time it happens, I'm just like starstruck a little bit. So
Of
he's
course.
he's a, he's a great guy. He's already like pushed the code change to production. We're doing great. So the team is growing. So in terms of business, I am mostly doing design partnerships at the moment. I'm looking for companies who have this need. I'm validating this is a real need and not just made up in my head. Uh, and I'm building the product with them. Um, I have a few of them already online in production. So PgDog is in production, very much so. Uh,
Okay. That's big.
it is, yeah. Like I would say, like probably 80% of the code that I've written is running in production right now and being tested continuously with real traffic, which is really great. Uh, So that's really exciting, and I'm trying to deploy a few more as we speak. Founder-led sales. I blog, I do these things. I talk, I go on podcasts. I cold email people on LinkedIn. Some of them actually answer, which is bananas.
Who are these people? That's crazy.
Who are these people? Yeah, you know, directors of infrastructure, whatever, managers. Like
Yeah.
my ICP is like very well defined. Database people. Like they'll
Hmm.
understand what's going on. So that's where I'm at.
That is incredibly impressive. All this time you're talking about, oh, the road expands before me. There's so much every day, like there's more to do. And yet you're in production places. So how did you find these first people basically to trust you? And what was your pitch to them of, hey, listen, you can trust me?
They pitched me like they just kind of find me like PgDog is great. We have this need. Can you deploy this? And I'm like, yeah, I can deploy it. Absolutely. And then we just deploy it. And well, we tested in staging first, load
Sure.
tested a little bit, we're not crazy. And then deploy to prod, spot a couple bugs. I'm right there with them on a call, fix the bugs, push it to prod, iterate. First design partner always, has it rough. A few days, we fix all the bugs and it's in prod, right? So that's just how you do it. Uh, Being a YC company really helps. Like my first customer is a YC company, so there's a lot of like trust that we're
Hmm.
both kind of like well-meaning people to begin with. We want to help each other, and we're not trying to like just like hack our way to something. Like we're legit. So that helps a lot. Uh, just blog about it, talk about it, explain what you're doing, open source most things, if not all things. Don't be afraid to
Hmm.
just like say like this is how it works. And sometimes people tell you you're wrong and do it this way, and I'm like, thank you, that's great. Now it's a core feature. Thank you very much. That's how you do it. You build it in the open. That's the story.
So at some point during this, you said open core. So what is the structure of the actual code? So are you building most of this in public, and so you're getting
Yeah.
a little community around you, and so that's a big vector by which people are finding you? And is there a proprietary sidecar adjunct non-core thing?
Not right now. Not everything's open source. Like, I mean, pgdog.dev, the website is closed source, but it's just a Jekyll template. Like, there's nothing there. The blog docs are open source. Code is open source. The cloud might be closed source just because I'm embarrassed by how much bash I write, and people should not know how the sausage is made. It's not pretty, but you kind of have to, do that that way. But yeah, pgdog open source. Nothing's hidden. Yeah.
So you said this new person already has successfully deployed some stuff to production, which is awesome. Congrats on that. How does that deploy process work for somebody that is in prod? So presumably this new employee writes some code. Lev has never written any bugs, but let's imagine Lev writes a bug, the new guy fixes it, he, pushes it to main. Then, like, what are your design partners? What does that deploy process look like to get the new version of PgDog without, or maybe experiencing some downtime or not? How do they get that out there?
Yeah, great question. Well, first things first, there's like a massive integration test suite that runs on main every single time on all PRs as well. So we test everything. I think we probably are close to, I don't want to make up a number. I haven't measured this actually, but I think we're almost at 100% code coverage. Plus
That's
all,
amazing.
like all the benchmarks, all the tests and stuff.
Hmm.
And we have like a Docker container that we build on the main branch with every single commit. And I literally just take the SHA of the Docker image, and I slack it to my friend at the one of my friends, and be like, hey, this is the shot, deploy this. And they're like, great, I'll deploy it in an hour. I'm like, sounds great. And in an hour they come back and they're like, great, it's deployed. I'm like, success. You know? Amazing, and then they kind of tell me what's
Okay.
going on. Yeah, I mean, that's just how it
Yeah.
works. It's really simple. Like I have an expert on the other side, there's an expert over here, and we just kind of talk on
Yeah.
Slack. That's just it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very, it's not consulting, but it's a very hands-on. You are working with the customers right now to find any bugs or any performance things, or to get feature requests, or to hear what's working and what's not. How vital has that been to, I guess, shaping the near-term roadmap?
It's the only way this will ever work. Uh,
Hmm.
Anyone who decides to build this in an ivory tower somewhere and release it stuff 5 years later once it's finished will fail. Because uh, like like you can't spend time without talking to the people who are actually going to use it, and then kind of build something and then give it to them, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's just not going to work. Not because like your idea was wrong, but you missed like an important part of how they're actually using it. I talked to like dozens, hundreds of companies, and they all have their own little quirks around how they use Postgres and how they use poolers, how they load balance, how they want to shard. So these conversations are really important, and building with them is much faster
Hmm.
because I don't have to rewrite anything that I did wrong. I just build literally what they asked me for, and I already kind of thought about, and it just confirmed to me that that's the right way to do it. Um, so that is the YC motto, or just like startup motto in general, is like do things that don't scale to get
Hmm.
started. And I'm going to do things that don't scale for probably the next 2-3 years. I'm going to literally sell to every single person individually. There's not going to be a sales team here. You're just going to be talking to me like for the foreseeable future until we're both blue in the face, and you'll be like, yes, I will use PgDog. I think that's the only way this can work.
Is it like what where's the money come from right now? Are they paying you to implement, you as a company? Are they paying you to implement this thing?
Yeah, asking for money is really important. Design partnership should always be paid. So I'm asking them like to pay me like a nominal sum, and
Mhm.
and that tells me that this is valuable to people. Like if you do something for free, you have no signal. but if you ask for money, you have a pretty good signal. This is something that's worth your time and their time.
And how have the first design partnerships gone in terms of, like you said earlier, migrating is a scary word. I imagine adding something between your application and your database is kind of scary, way less scary. But how has that deploy process gone? Like the initial, not migration, the initial deploy, how has that gone?
Honestly, like not as bad as you think.
Not as bad as you think. I assumed it went well, but sure, carry on.
Well, it's never going to be smooth the first time, especially with the first design partner. The first design partner,
Yeah.
like we tested it in staging, it was fine, but then we deployed to prod, and there was a couple of like, I think we missed like it was something around prepared statements or something around transaction management, like the state management, that was a little bit off. It didn't take anything down. It just caused like maybe like 1% of errors across, across the queries, which is not great, but it's not terminal. So you kind of roll it back, you fix the bug, and then you roll it forward. And then as long as you have a smooth deployment pipeline for these kind of things, which we do, they're using Kubernetes, so it's just a push button thing. You just deploy it in less than 30 seconds, and that's it. So deploying a new code version takes no time at all. So the first design partner definitely takes up all the risk, but that is great because they're telling me and they're validating that this is a real problem. Like somebody who's willing to try something so experimental and and crazy directly in prod is telling me that what I'm working on is so important to them, at least, that they're willing to try this. Um, and
And they're
that's
willing to pay you for it. There's something that is so crazy and experimental, push it to prod and pay you for the privilege of it. That's a pretty good sign.
I just have to do it 1,000 more times, and then we have a company.
Yeah, exactly. Easy.
Easy, exactly.
Straightforward at the very least.
Yeah.
Uh, one thing you said a second ago about every company, all 1,000 companies are doing something slightly different with Postgres. That made me go back to this is not an extension because I'm sure, extensions, they all work great together, but you don't have to care what other extensions they might have, the other weird things they're doing with Postgres, because you get to sit comfortably in front of it outside of that whole like, hey, did y'all change a setting on Postgres? Because now PgDog's all wonky. It's like, no. Totally discrete. So are you finding that to be a benefit as well? Everybody can do their crazy whatever they want to do, and you're just kind of in the outside world.
Yes. And that's because the Postgres protocol, like the network protocol, is incredibly stable. They haven't made any like significant changes to it in probably like 20 years or so. Like,
Oh, cool.
it's just like it's well done, it's well documented, and all I'm doing is manipulating some bytes and some protocol state, which is fixed and most likely will never change. So whatever crazy stuff they do with extensions is just completely removed from what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's totally behind the curtain from you, and you super don't care about that.
Not usually. So
That's
okay,
great.
this is a really like there's a fun article that I wrote that about sharding PG vector, which kind of goes against this thesis where I try to care about what's inside the DB and see if I could like change my sharding function based on the data that people are storing there, and that kind of makes sense. It's you could check it out. It's a little wonky. I don't know if it actually works, but it was a kind of cool prototype. Like what happens if I implement one of the like vector indices that inside PgDog, and then I shard it across multiple databases, knowing that people are using pgvector underneath. That's an extension, but that was more like a prototype than like I was playing with the idea more than anything else. I guess long story short, the general answer is no. I don't care about what they do inside Postgres, uh, but sometimes maybe yes.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't think there are no absolutes except the fact that there are no absolutes. So it sounds like things are picking up. You've got an employee, you've got a bunch of design partners. Summer's almost over, so you're about to be done with everything. So as we wrap up here, tell me like what do the next 6 months look like? What do you want from people that may be listening? And kind of tell me about cast the vision for the next 6 months, and then maybe after that, give me the next 5 years.
5 years in startup world, that is impossible to predict.
I know.
In fact, whatever I tell you right now will be completely irrelevant in like 6 months. I guarantee it.
Just cast a vision. Just dream.
Just dream. For anyone who's listening, please come and try PgDog. It's free and open source. You can deploy it wherever you need to deploy it. I even have a Docker image. You can pull it straight from GitHub. Please try it. Let me know what I did wrong. That would be really, really helpful. If you find nothing wrong and you want to deploy this in your cloud, give me a call. I would love to help. Now in terms of vision, sharding for Postgres can easily occupy the next 5 years because there's going to be all kinds of crazy cross shard cases I need to support. I really want to add support for like unique indices. That would be really cool. There's like so many like crazy optimization techniques you can do there. Foreign keys across shards would be phenomenal. Like all of these things that are like that would really differentiate PgDog from everybody else because nobody really does that. Because these are actually difficult problems. If you look at like Cockroach DB, for example, that claims to be like, sharded PG, which is not even Postgres underneath, but they don't support foreign keys across shards. And I mean, probably for a good reason, but I would still would want to explore all of these like niches that everybody kind of just abandoned and moved over. Building our own cloud would be great, so people can just like come in, push a button and deploy PgDog wherever they need to. That'll be phenomenal. That's really the scalable business part. You can't have me deploy it manually in every single cloud, at least not for
Mm-hmm.
long. If we're successful, success looks like there's a push button deployment in my cloud where you get metrics, logs, scaling everything, configuration. It would be phenomenal. So that's easily the next 2-3 years. 5 years. I don't want to.
I'll settle for 2 or 3. You weren't gonna give me beyond 6 months. You gave me 2 to 3, so I'll settle for that. That's plenty.
Fair enough.
So this has been great. This has been super fun. Tell the people where they can find you on your favorite social networks, or it sounds like you're doing a lot of writing about some of the gnarly Postgres stuff. So where can people connect with you?
Yeah, pgdog.dev, top right corner, book a demo. It's not a demo, it's just a call with me. I'm not going to show you anything that you don't want. I swear to God, it's just a 50-minute call. I recently signed up for Twitter, not called x.com. I think I missed that whole saga. I'm going to be there probably. There's a Discord, you can join and chat. GitHub, email. I think there's my address somewhere. You can send me a letter if you want. That's fine.
Perfect.
I won't think it's weird.
Since you're new to X.com, the Everything app, I will tell you sometimes telling us what your username is would be super helpful. So how can we find? Oh, he's looking it up. He doesn't know.
Of course I don't. Hold on. I think I hold on a second. I think it's literally Lev
You're
PgDog.
like brand new, huh?
It's Lev PgDog. Literally no
Oh,
spaces. Yeah,
that's great. All right. Well, I will add a link down
I
in the
think.
show notes. I'll add a link to everything that I can find, including Lev PgDog on Twitter. Thank you. Thank you for. You look confused. Are you sure that's your username?
I'm signing into Twitter. Sorry, x.com to validate to check that it is, and I think that's right. Hold on a second. I swear I'm gonna
What
get
a
better at
delight.
this. But I'm an engineer
Oh, it's
first.
flawless. No notes whatsoever.
It is me, confirmed.
Okay, Lev PG Dog, great. So we will have a link to that and everything else down in the show notes. Lev, thank you for doing this. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to following along and seeing how PG Dog does.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me so much, Aaron. I really enjoyed it.